Hello, my name is Madeline Pena, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager for Midtown Houston. Welcome to another virtual Brunch and Books program. I'm so excited to welcome this month's guest, Roy Juarez, the author of the book Homeless by Choice, a memoir of his life detailing the struggle of when he found himself homeless at the age of 14 and had to drop out of school. However, his story of struggle and resilience is one that he now uses to inspire others to never give up on themselves or their dreams. Thanks to mentors and educators, Juarez was able to return to high school as a third-year freshman, graduating in 2000. He then went on to study business administration at Hardin-Simmons University and graduated in 2009. Now he's a published author and travels around the country as a motivational speaker. Welcome, Roy. So excited to have you here.
Madeline, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here and be able to share my message.
All right, so let's dive right in. In your memoir, Homeless by Choice, what prompted you to write the book?
I had been traveling the country trying to reach kids that were like me who had struggled in lives. For me, growing up homeless. And I felt like I just wasn't doing enough. I wasn't reaching enough young people. So one morning I woke up and I called my operations manager and I said, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to need your help because I was hoping that the book would be able to reach more young people and educators and families. And so that's the whole reason why I wrote the book.
Okay, so Roy, tell us a little bit about the book, Homeless by Choice. Tell us the backstory and why you chose that title.
You know, Homeless by Choice, the title came from a tour that I did, a national tour. It was my very first tour. I had never planned on being a speaker. I grew up as this homeless kid to where I thought that life was never going to be what I thought it was going to be. If anything, I would work two jobs, but I was going to make sure that my little brother and my little sister had all of their dreams. And I was going to make sure that they ate. I was going to make sure that they went to school. Because when my parents separated, we went into hiding because it was a very violent divorce. So I finally found homes for them. My grandmother took my baby sister, my best friend's aunt took my little brother, and no one would take me. So I ended up living out of a bag for 2.5 years with whoever would take me in for however long. And while I was grateful for every person who took me in, I will be honest, there were some families that are members of the families that weren't so good. And so I was always scared to go into someone's house because I never knew what to expect. One day, I have no place to go, I have no food, so I sneak into a hotel to steal a meal. And I'm thinking, I'm going to eat this meal and I'm going to leave and I'll figure out where I'm going to sleep that night. When I sneak in, they were having a banquet. And I remember that there was a speaker and she was talking about her life and how she had overcome all these obstacles and how she grew to be the highest ranking Latina woman in the combat support field of the United States Army. And I said to myself, wow, if she can make it, I can make it too. So I went back to my best friend's aunt's house. I grabbed my baby brother because I had this idea that I'm going to try to live in this church. And as collateral, I'll clean it for them. But I was going to have my little brother and I was going to put him on a bus and he was going to go to school and all his dreams were going to come true. Well, the minister said, no, you're not going to live in this church. You'll live with me under one condition. You have to go back to school. And, you know, I had always wanted that. I had always wanted to be in high school. I just never knew where I was going to live or how long I was going to be there. I enrolled as a third-year freshman, became a sophomore, graduated, and went on to community college. And when I was in community college, the dean comes up to me and said, well, Roy, are you going to come to an event we're having tonight? I said, well, I wasn't planning on it. She goes, Roy, I really want you to introduce our speaker. I'm like, well, who is it? It happened to be the same woman who at 7 years earlier was speaking at that hotel I snuck into. And I said, I would love to introduce her. And nobody knew my story because homeless kids like myself, you learn to be invisible. Because if you're invisible, you get to stay longer. But no kid should ever have to be invisible. And so that day I broke tradition, I broke my silence, and in front of all my peers, in front of my professors, in front of the speaker, the lady, I said, Miss, you don't know me, but we've met before. You know, 7 years ago, I was a homeless teenager and I snuck into a hotel to steal a meal and I heard you. And with just your words, you gave me enough hope not to give up. And look at me, I'm actually in college today because of you. The idea, the power that our words have and how they can impact and change lives. Now, imagine when we put action behind those words, what we can really do in our communities, which is why I think forums like this one is so important, because you're telling stories that you have no idea where they're going to go and how they're going to help and how they're going to impact, which is the same reason why I think it's so important that we all write our stories, even if it's just to share within our family, because you don't know the impact. Stories bring understanding. To a child can understand their parent, the parent can understand their child. They're so powerful. And so I graduate from community college, and I go to a 4-year university, Hardin-Simmons University. I graduate from Hardin-Simmons University, and when I'm grabbing my diploma, I think, you know what? Why me? Why do I get so lucky that I make it all the way? Because at that time, there was an estimated 1.6 million homeless teenagers in this country. Right before the pandemic, there was 2.1 million. I don't know how we went so far in the wrong direction, but that's a whole other conversation. But when I graduate, I said, you know what? I have to do something to give back in honor of every person who housed me, who fed me, who clothed me. I got to do something. So I decided that before I used my business degree and went to go work in corporate America to make a lot of money, because I never wanted to be homeless again, I said, I got to give back. So I decided that I would live homeless one more time in my life. And I was going to live out of my car, and I was going to drive from LA to Jacksonville, Florida. And I was going to just speak at any place that would open up their doors. And I was going to find the kids that were just like me. And I was going to find them, and I was going to share with them my story and say, look, please don't give up. Don't give up. Life can get better, but you have to be here to see it. And education is one of those ways. And so my whole journey, my whole career started with just this desire to try to help young people. And from that, it was a tour that I coined Homeless by Choice, because I was homeless again. But this time it was my choice. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't my situation. It was my choice. And that's why the book today is called Homeless by Choice, because it talks about that journey that I did. Homeless by Choice, a memoir of love, hate, and forgiveness. It takes the reader through the journey of how I had turned very angry, but my education taught me to separate the illness from the person that I love. And I love my parents. They were just broken, but I could be the change that I want to see in them. And that's where the title comes from.
Wow, that is so inspiring, and to see how you've been able, just like someone else's words impacted you in your life, now you and your words are impacting dozens of people's lives, and I think that is absolutely beautiful. And so, what exactly was the goal for your book? So, when in writing it, did you have a specific outcome in mind?
I have dedicated my life as an activist. And so I was crisscrossing this country trying to find, kids like myself, to inspire them not to give up on life, their dreams, and understand how valuable education was. And I have come across so many young people that are hurting emotionally and mentally. And I was hoping that this book would be an extension of the work that I already do and an introduction to those that I haven't met yet. And I was hoping that it would bring them and inspire them to a place to where they understand their value and they don't give up on themselves.
Wow. And so with this book, what doors has this book opened up for you?
Honestly, the greatest gift that this book has ever given me is my biological dad. I grew up in a very broken home. I became homeless because of domestic violence. And 20 years went by without my dad in my life. And when I wrote this book, I gave him a one-line dedication. And in the dedication, it says, "To my dad, I hope that we can build a healthy relationship before it's too late." And I had put this page that I read from my book on social media, and I didn't realize that his girlfriend at the time followed me. So she showed him the video, and I received this phone call, and he's like, "Hey, you little rat," which is how my dad would refer to me as a kid. It's a term of endearment. And I said, "Dad?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's me." I was like, "Well, what do you want?" He goes, "I heard you wrote a book." I said, "I did." He said, "Well, if you're being honest about what you wrote in it," he said, "I'm ready." He goes, "I will take the blame for everything." He says, and I said, "Well, if you're being honest, why don't you come to my book launch? It's going to be in San Antonio next week." He showed up. So for the first time in over 20 something years, I'm standing on stage, and I had asked my family to join me on stage, and I had my biological mom and my stepdad to my right. My siblings were all in birth order, and I had my biological dad to my left. You know, Madeline, I feel that we're all chasing something. Some people want a bigger paycheck, a nicer car, a bigger house, and that's fine. Chase what you want. That's fine. My chase was to try to bring my family back together. I mean, not that I wanted my parents married. Like, no, they're much better apart. I just wanted to have a relationship with them again, and this is what this book has given me.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful and touching, and I'm glad that that was the outcome. And so, with that, would you encourage others to write their story? And if so, why?
I would. I think that in writing the story, Homeless by Choice, a memoir of love, hate, and forgiveness, it was actually very therapeutic. It really caused me to do a lot of introspection and really reflect on what happened to me. And when I reflected on it, I had to make a decision. Do I want to get better or do I want to be bitter? And I want to be better. And so it allowed me to really decide on who I wanted to be, where I wanted to go, what I was going to use this short life that we get, what was I going to use it for, and what matters the most. And so I think that when you take a journey, even if you don't publish it, even if it's just in a journal, writing can allow you to do a lot of introspection and bring healing in areas that you actually really didn't know that you needed healing in. And so I think it's very important.
Wow, very powerful message. And so I'm sure this isn't your only book. Are you currently working on anything else?
Actually, I this is not my only book. It was my first book. So my first book was Homeless by Choice, which is this one here, my very first one. And then, during the pandemic, I wrote a quick book with my mentor, so that we can help families to really make sure to focus on what matters the most during these troubling times. But my most recent one has always been a bucket lister for me, and it was my very first children's book, which is The Adventures of James and Roy. And so this has always been a bucket lister, and I was able to fulfill that this year.
Wow. So you've been a very busy man. I see. Um,
I'm
and
trying. I'm trying.
yeah,
Doing my
Roy,
best.
I mean, just having this conversation with you, I'm so inspired and touched by everything that you have shared with us today. I know our audience will really appreciate this. And I just want to say thank you so much, Roy, for sharing your story with us today and being with us. What a treat. Roy, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And now we want to bring in President and CEO Michael Nicols from the Coalition of the Homeless here in Midtown to talk about their organization and the services they provide to help others who find themselves in similar situations as Roy did. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
It is so good to be here, and that was such a compelling discussion that you had with Roy. I look forward to reading that book. I bought it, and it's on its way, and it's a great story and really discusses resilience. Um, uh, People experiencing homelessness have tremendous resilience, and it's so important that we recognize that and not paint it over with one brush. And Roy does a beautiful job in describing that.
That's right. And so with that, Michael, can you tell us what is Coalition for the Homeless?
The Coalition for the Homeless of Houston and Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery County is a nonprofit that works very closely with all of the service providers who provide services for people experiencing homelessness, as well as with public entities, the city of Houston, then the counties of Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, who provide funding and also some services for people experiencing homelessness. We have a single focus. We want to give everybody a safe place to live. This is about doing the right thing for people and the right thing for our communities.
Yeah, definitely. And, with that, how is the coalition working to help curb homelessness in our community?
Sure. So currently, we have a general philosophy, which is we want people to have housing. And what we've been doing is since 2012, we have housed over 20,000 people who were experiencing homelessness. Right this moment, there are 5,000 people who are experiencing homelessness in supportive housing. That means they get vouchers for their housing along with support services to help them move forward with their lives, with any of the issues that have come out of the trauma that they either faced before they were homeless or during homelessness. And so they can be self-sustaining, and that's the goal. Of those 20,000 people, 85% have been able to stay in housing, stay out of jail, stay out of hospitals, stay out of rehabs. And it's quite a remarkable record. And what it says is that, as Roy shows, that people, if you give them a chance and get them out of the traumatic situation of homelessness, they'll do okay.
Wow. And then, so how can we as the public help to support the mission for the Coalition of Homeless?
Well, again, the biggest thing is to understanding a little bit about people experiencing homelessness and understanding the cost. During COVID, we found it that healthcare, that having somebody housing is healthcare. So what happened is when COVID hit and we found people who were homeless had COVID, we had to put them up in very expensive medical facilities. We set up a motel. We had to do social distancing, special programs for testing, all good things. But what we determined, and what the city of Houston and Harris County determined with us, is that we could put them in housing. So the coalition and its partners developed the community COVID housing plan, which will impact 5,000 people, again, funded by both city and county funds through the federal government, along with $8 million in philanthropic funds. That's had a huge impact. Just since November, since we've been officially in place, we've housed more than 1,000 people in supportive housing. This is great news for the community. None of us want to see somebody homeless. When the winter freeze struck, of course, all of us were pained by the deaths of homeless people. We work with the city to set up warming shelters. But what we did, most importantly, those warming shelters, is help assess people and direct them into permanent housing. Mm-hmm. We have a way to go. We need the city and county to continue to support. We need communities to support facilities that work with us. We need a navigation center, and we want the communities to support that. In Midtown, there's several homelessness programs. What I guess I want people to know is that those programs are working. They are making a difference. And to see that, and we appreciate Midtown and their support of this program.
Michael, I want to tell you, thank you so much for being on with us and explaining the services that you guys provide, what you guys do within the community. I think today we have learned that, you know, resilience is prevalent throughout this entire conversation. And also education is key. And so I appreciate you being with us today. And I hope our audience really enjoyed the conversation today and picks up a copy of Roy's book, Homeless by Choice. So with that, thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you next month.